Welcome to Cosmic Imprint, a podcast bringing you weekly goodness as the home of lightworkers, new paradigm leaders, sensitive souls, magical beings, spiritual seekers and both spiritual CEOs alike, who are ready to live life in alignment with your own soul's truth and who are here to buck the trends, color outside the lines, thriving in this lifetime's incarnation. Join me each week for conversations about all things human design, weaving my own soul magic where I'll share my intuitive gifts, love of all things metaphysical, manifestation, mindset, fifth dimension, spirit guides, light beings, and beyond. Let's explore your cosmic imprint together. Oh, hi there, dearest Earthling. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cosmic Imprint. Of course, I'm Rose. I'm here hanging out with you over whatever medium and format you choose to listen in on. Personally, for me, my go-to time for listening to podcasts is when I'm driving and also when I'm walking my dogs, if I don't have someone alongside me to chat to. So it really is always so fascinating to me to just imagine where people like yourself are when you're listening in and when you're getting the opportunity to just soak up something like a podcast, because I know in today's life and our modern new paradigm existence, obviously we all have our own ways that we enjoy consuming longer form content such as a podcast. And I'm very aware that the luxury of time to be able to sit and listen to something that's, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour long is a really big deal. So if you're here and if you're listening in, I just wanted to send you a big virtual hug and say thank you, because I really do appreciate just how precious your time is. And I love that you love the podcast and you're listening in. And today I'm jumping on here. I've got my cup of cacao in hand and I'm actually sitting at my dining table in my lounge. And my dogs are in attendance, as they always are with everything I do. And we're chilling out. And I'm going to have a chat to you today about something that's been brewing away for me that has been a real calling when it comes to the way in which I interact and interrelate and share about human design. And that's been this real pull that I've had to make human design more accessible through Roseland, through all the ways in which I share and empower others when it comes to human design. And I wanted to kind of chat through some of that today with you. And I kind of touched on it in a behind the scenes episode I did just recently, but one of the big things I wanted to talk about was kind of my perspective on this. And if you've been around human design for a while, you might have seen it talked about a little bit. If you're brand new to human design, you might come across this in the future with various different human design readers and mentors and different people that incorporate or facilitate human design work. And because, spoiler alert, I am not the one and only person out there that can empower you with human design. And I fucking love that, right? Like, I am so here for community over competition every day, because I know that I am not the only source of this information, right? And chances are you resonate with the way I speak to things in human design or speak about things or share about things, but there will also be other people and places and sources of this wisdom that you vibe with too. And that's so fucking cool, right? Because we get to broaden our depth of understanding and our approach, right? Like, I always kind of use the analogy of, I love so many artists and musicians. I couldn't even narrow it down to like a top 3, right? And the same goes with something like human design, right? We get to enjoy everyone's different approach and magic that they bring, and we get to choose what we absorb and how we synthesize it all together. So that kind of leads me into my perspective on why I am very much in 2021 making it a real kind of forerunner in my business to make human design even more accessible, right? That's something that's been a really big banner heading point thought experiment going on for me for much of this year, since about sort of February. And the reason I am really called towards just going deeper and deeper into how I can make it more accessible is because my perspective on something like human design, as with a lot of other modalities, is that we are all here to learn from one another, to share our stories, to share our lived experiences, right? And that is the most powerful way that we as 3D human beings running around in our little human meat suits that we've put on in this incarnation. That's the way we learn from one another, right? It's the way we grow. It's the way we expand. It's the way we share our soul growth moments with each other so that we can then in turn learn from others. And I am particularly excited by the new paradigm approach to human design, whereby basically in my mind, I have this vision of the world in, say, like 10 years' time, when human design is so comfortable in our day-to-day language that it is as simple as, asking what someone's, sort of, are they a Pisces or are they a Gemini, right? Like, that we are so comfortable with the language of human design that we talk about, living life as a projector or a manifesting generator or, a generator, for example. And, babies go home from the hospital and the parents know exactly the birth time and their birth chart, because that's something that is so commonly practiced, to have those exact details of birth time to hand so that parents can be empowered with knowing their true, the true essence of this child, right? And it is really something that I feel that, human design is really bursting into the collective consciousness right now. And it's important that we understand that it's okay for, potentially everyone to have some level of understanding and handle on this information and how to live and breathe it themselves. Like, why would we gatekeep this sort of knowledge and such fucking empowering information? Why would we gatekeep that under lock and key behind, these big fucking castle walls where only a select few of people can ever access it? So I'm here for the let's empower as many people as we can to have some level of understanding, because I could just see how our world can continue to evolve and align and ascend and raise the vibration of our collective kind of humanity, right? If more people were empowered to go, hey, yeah, I truly understand myself and I celebrate myself and I know my uniqueness, rather than potentially what, people go whole lifetimes without knowing that. So I'm here for sharing human design in this way that is going, hey, here's this information that is so fucking life-changing. Take out of it what resonates for you now. You might choose to come back to more of it later, or you might just simply be knowing your energy type might simply be enough, right? For a lot of people, and your unique way of getting into alignment and your strategy with showing up in the world. But it's also the fact that we, for those of you who have maybe, dove into your human design a little bit, whether you've had a reading with me, whether you've had, the opportunity to dive into your chart with other, readers or from self-study resources, whatever way you've come to it, right? I know myself how powerful and just truly transformational it was understanding my human design. Like just the clarity and the permission slips and the so much goodness there. And it really is just allowing that to keep blossoming, right? It's like the lotus that keeps, on opening up, and the different layers and the different petals, and it's blooming out of that, murky, muddy water that lotus flowers so beautifully grow in and flourish in. And that's the kind of essence here, right? That we're going, okay, you can just bloom anyway, and knowing and understanding and having that accessible way of interacting with knowledge about your human design is so important for that process. And really that's why I guess one of the things I wanted to sort of touch on as a foundational piece to that, with going, okay, why am I called to make human design more accessible, right? Like I could just be someone who goes, hey, I love human design, I'm going to offer chart readings, right? Like that could very easily have been my soulpreneur business, right? But why is it that for me particularly, I'm called to do something more than that? Why am I called to do something that is along these lines of going, hey, I'm going to have ways that people can tap into their human design with greater ease, with greater flexibility, with greater, accessibility, all of this good stuff. So I thought I would start a little bit by talking about my own soul purpose, my incarnation cross within my human design, just to give a little bit of, a breakdown about this, because I think this is where we also get to share the kind of who's and what's behind the scenes, right? Because not everyone is going to come across human design and have the same path as me. In fact, I fucking want everyone to come across human design and then embrace their own true path with it, right? And I'm going to touch back more on that point later. So don't let me get distracted into that now. Let's start talking about my example here that I'm sharing. So my incarnation cross is called the left angle cross of dominion. And the order of my gates is gate 63, gate 64, gate 26, gate 45. Sorry, I just had to flick back over to my chart and double check the order those two were in. And so what does that mean in reality? So my soul purpose is to be here as someone who is here to ask the big questions in life, right? Gate 63 being my life's work, my, most important out of those four. And it's got my 6-line wisdom attached to that. So it's being here to be someone who poses the big questions, who asks the big questions, who reaches for the answers to, I've got questions, basically, is like my life's motto. Like I'm not going to take anything on face value. I'm always going to be reviewing things with that sort of eye and energy around it. That's like, how could this be zhuzhed up? How could this be #projector efficiencyed, right? Like the efficiency of my mental projector self looking at things. And also just knowing that it's almost like the energy here of reviewing an essay before you hand it in, right? It's like checking to make sure that everything's been included. Are there any gaps in knowledge? Are there any, glaringly obvious missing pieces, and with that comes gate 64 right alongside it, going, okay, we've got the big questions that we're asking, but like ultimately, what's it all for? What is all of this for, right? This whole big weird thing called life that us humans are here living and breathing and doing and hustling around and running around in our little human meat suits and, going off to jobs and getting paid in a bank account that we access through an app on our phone, and we never actually see the physical money. And, we have these houses that we pay, huge mortgages for. And anyway, like that's my gate 64 that's going like, what's it all for? Reaching for the clarity on those big questions that I'm naturally always kind of posing and asking and like pondering on, right? Then here comes along the, gates 26 and 45, right? That are from the heart chakra, gate 26, and from the throat chakra, gate 45. So I'm here going, hey, I'm someone who, with gate 26, is here to basically empower people in the way that is most aligned and in congruence with them. So that's the energy of going, if I walk in a room and there's 10 different people, I am going to be able to speak to those 10 different people about something in 10 different ways, because I'm able to be that person who sort of translates it into everyone's language. I'm not sitting here going, this is the one way to understand this. I'm here to go, hey, what do you need? How can I share this in a way that supports you? And using my intuitive sort of soul self to readily recognize the way people most naturally or need to hear something, or what's going to vibe best for them, for example. And then gate 45 is all about, it's often referred to as this sort of regal energy, like the queen sitting on her throne, right? So that alone is kind of a whole soul work mission, like getting your head around the fact that you've got that sort of queenly or kingly type energy about the way you empower others and speak to others and support others, and then on the flip side, the way you kind of order people around, potentially, if you're out of alignment, right? Like, what sort of queen am I? Am I the queen that barks orders from her throne? No, I'm the queen that sits there and goes, okay, I'm here to empower the collective around me with resources. I'm the one who knows that my community are going to be at their healthiest, their best, their brightest. They're going to thrive when you have access to, when you're well resourced, when you've been given equal opportunities to, educate yourselves on things that are of importance to you, and educated in the way that aligns for you as well, which is why, it's no surprise that I have such a strong passion for sort of busting these myths around our education system and ways that we sort of go, you have to fit this one box, otherwise you're a failure. And I'm here to go like, fuck no, there is no box. Like, every single person has a unique way of learning, and everyone is capable of learning everything. But it might be that you're a visual learner or an audible learner, or you might be a reader, you might be a creative, right? Like, you might need to move around a lot, bite-sized pieces of information. The list goes on, right? And then ultimately it's that essence of empowering others is so at the heart of this energy, because there are going to be people who have got that sort of fear around sharing knowledge. And I'm not one of them. I'm here to go, here is everything I know, right? Like, here is absolutely everything I know. Now, how can I empower you to actually put that into practice? Because at the end of the day, we can be, sort of have all of the knowledge in the world like shoved in our faces, but if we're not ready for it, if we're not aligned to it, if it's not the right, sort of context or package that it comes in, if we've got other things going on in our life, we can't actually embody it and integrate it, right? The integration is the biggest piece. And so I'm here to facilitate that as much as I'm here to share knowledge and understanding. So what does all that mean? It really comes together with that left angle cross of dominion, and it's all about creating a system that is unique to me. Like, I'm here to be someone who goes, hey, I'm here to create something entirely new that is a vehicle for sharing this information. I'm not here to take a already sort of established way of doing things and just continue to kind of toe the line with that. I don't really know the right phrase to put that into, but basically I'm here with, like, my sole purpose is to take things and go, here's my unique way of, my unique format, my unique system, my unique modality. That is what I'm here to create, myself, but then also to share with others. So that's why in my space, Roseland, right? The way I share human design and the ways that you can work with me and the ways that I support others is always going to be different to possibly the way you see other people do it. And in many ways, that also holds hands really tightly with my only channel that I've got, because being a mental projector, I only have my ajna and throat defined. And I only, between those two, have one channel, and it's the channel 4323. And you might have heard me talk about this in other episodes and other places, where 4323 is known as the channel that is kind of colloquially, a lot in human design, it's called the genius to freak channel. But it basically, the energy here is that if you have this channel, the full channel, it is all about being someone who's signed off a contract with the universe before coming here, before incarnating, that you've gone, yeah, I'm prepared to be here ahead of my time. I'm prepared to be here with just a straight direct download from the universe coming in, a really strong link, and it's very much downloaded through it's your ajna, right? Your third eye, your mind. So it's very for me, my experience with this, it's very much that my brain and my mind is a very, very noisy fucking space. And those downloads come through pretty thick and fast and in the moment. So, and that's what I signed up for, because I'm here to be that person who's going, hey, you know what? I'm here to kind of see the future a little bit, to see things in a completely new paradigm way. And there will be a whole lot of people in this world who don't get that. They don't get my perspective. They don't get the way I see things. They're not ready for what I'm here sharing, and that's okay. But at the same time, there will be a whole lot of people, when I am in my mental projector alignment, living my projector strategy, when I'm using my sounding board authority to know the right moments and times and communities and situations in which to share what I download and the way I see things and the modalities that I'm here to create, then of course it's all in alignment, right? So it's very much the energy of, if you can imagine, the man who created Apple, Steve Jobs, right? That 10 years before any of us knew what an iPhone looked like, for example, if someone had tried to tell you that, this is what we would all be carrying around in our pockets, this touchscreen device with a thing called an app, and that social media would be in your pocket and you'd be, able to see video and photo on your, device that's in the size of your palm, right? Like, we would have all gone like, no way, mate. Like, that's in the movies only. And I'm still here on my, whatever Nokia brick phone that's texting with the buttons that I have to push 20 times to get to the right letter. It quantum leaped us forward when Steve Jobs created the iPhones. And that's 4323 channel in action. That's that quantum leap of a divine download, that this is the thing that I'm here to create and share with the world. And obviously Steve Jobs had a whole lot of other stuff going on within his human design, but I'm not going to get into that. But basically that's a whole kind of long-winded way of sharing why I am so called to make human design more accessible, but in a way that is uniquely the way I see things and the perspective I have on things. And yes, of course, it still means there's a fair amount of trial and error in there, because quite often the way things are downloaded into my mind and the way I see things in my mind's eye, trying to get that to actually come to fruition in reality as the being that I am, in this particular moment in time. Sometimes it takes a few goes, but that's all part of the kind of like mad scientist process, right? Like the fun of that alchemist process where you get to kind of play around with how all these things come together into the melting pot and produce something that is really, awesome. Like I get so excited creating these new perspectives and ways of guiding people through, their journey with human design, like guiding you down the rabbit hole, right? So rather than like just opening the hatch and being like free fall to the bottom, which I'm sure some of you are going to be laughing, going, yeah, that was totally my way into human design. Was like I literally like peered down the hole and then like woo, like straight fall fast down to the bottom of the rabbit hole. But anyway, so so what's that kind of looking like in terms of the ways at the moment that my sort of the tangible of how I'm making things more accessible. And again, I kind of touched on this with my behind the scenes episode, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper into it in this episode here. So because I think that this is also as much as I'm here talking about like, hey, this is how you can work with me, or this is how you can learn more about your human design, I'm also sharing this sort of real life talking through the process of it for all you soulpreneurs out there who are maybe looking at your offers or looking at the way you create offers in your business or whatever it might be, and just need someone talking through the honesty about evolving things and why I've made decisions in my business to do things the way I have. Because if that can give you even just one permission slip to either really truly create something that's in alignment with you and your human design, so that you as a soulpreneur are able to show up every day and deliver your gifts in the way that is most correct and aligned for you, so that you're not sort of in that no man's land energetically, right? Where you kind of know that it's maybe not quite right, but you're looking to all these other people because, hey, I've been there. I still am there a lot of the time, of like looking at what other people are doing and offering and the way they structure their business. And that's a template to sort of start with, right? But we have to have the self-confidence and the empowerment to know that we can curate it and continue to refine it and evolve it so that it really truly fits, right? Like so that the shoe truly fits you, so that it's not like rubbing and giving you blisters or leaving you with like really sore feet, right? Like this is the beauty of it, that you get that custom fit that's perfect for you, and to not kind of just keep sticking with something because you think that's the industry standard or the expectation from people that you're connecting with in your community or other communities, right? So one of the biggest things is that I'm taking down the existing soul notes chart reading offering I had, and I've been talking with a really dear friend who's also a soulpreneur lately, and they've been going through exactly the same thing, that slightly scary moment when you have to kind of pack up and put away something that was really successful in your business, because even though it was really awesome and served so many people and was really successful, the shoe didn't quite fit, right? Like it energetically wasn't quite in alignment for me. And the major part of that was that I was, with soul notes, I fucking loved putting them together, and I loved that real, that was the divine download for me of how to share chart readings with people in a way that was like creating your own almost like self-study course about yourself. It was, PDFs, it was audio recordings. It was a masterclass on your energy type. You know, there was so much detail there. It was like, I don't even know, probably 10 hours worth of content for people. However, energetically for me, as a mental projector, right? Because it would be totally different if I was a different energy type, and well, we won't go there because this is me and this is who I am. That energetically for me, I could pull together a limited, you know, there was a cap energetically on how many of those I could produce. They're not a template, you know, just change a few lines and click send, right? Like there was a real process that went into pulling them together. And just because they weren't a live reading, you know, sitting talking over Zoom one-on-one to someone for 90 minutes, energetically they still took a lot of me and my magic and my gifts to pull them together. And I love, like, just love being able to create them and curate them and send them to people. But yeah, I had to make that tough call to go, okay, I have to now retire this way of working with me. And what's coming through instead as the next evolution is the how to make it more accessible. Because while they were fucking amazing, right? Like, I'm going to toot my own horn here. Like, I fucking loved them. And I know that everyone who got one was just like, this is, you know, this is mind blowing. There was also an element of luxury, or what's the right word? Like, sort of an element of privilege to being able to access human design in that way, I think is the right way to put that. That for a start, they were a big self-investment. And for secondly, the time and amount of information that was in those was also a privilege for a lot of people to be able to spend that amount of time, because it was like giving someone an 8-week self-study course on themselves, right? Like, you could spend weeks and weeks and weeks just getting through all the content in there. And that's what I suddenly kind of realized about it, that I was like, it's delivered in a way that really spun my wheels, because I just love that much detail and nuance and having that kind of real in-depth, content-rich source of information to learn from. But in terms of being able to empower people to be able to digest things at a pace that suits them, and to be able to digest things in smaller bite-sized chunks or pieces of information and time, it needed an overhaul. So now, going forward, what's really exciting is that I'm creating these self-study resources. So again, it's still empowering people to be able to dive into their own human design, but in far more bite-sized chunks, so that it means that if the only thing you're going to start with is your energy type, there's a masterclass for that. And then if you decide, like, hey, I've binged that in, you know, the space of 45 minutes and I want more right here, right now, there are going to be masterclasses to keep going, you know, down the rabbit hole, right? So, and this is what I mean about, like, creating a way that is a guided, supportive process going down the rabbit hole, because I fucking want you to go down the rabbit hole, but doing it in a way that means that you can soak up and absorb this information, but also integrate it at the same time. So creating self-study resources for your authority, for your profile, going into the different centers and chakras in your design. So when you take a glance at your chart, you know, you see all these shapes, and you see some are colored in and some are white and some have little lines coming off them and some have nothing attached to them potentially. And what does that mean? So you're able to dive in and go, okay, I have, you know, a couple of hours to spare, I'm going to start with looking at my defined centers, and you can customize which ones you are grabbing and accessing, right? So if you know you've got a defined ajna, a defined throat, a defined spleen, and a defined heart chakra, for example, you can grab those 4 self-study guides and get into those after moving through that process of going, you've started with your energy type, you've gone through your authority, you've then grabbed your profile, and then you're going to do the different centers and chakras in your energetically, so you understand those components even deeper. And that's where I'm so excited to keep on refining what those self-study guides and resources are, because I want them to be this accessible experience, not only obviously financially, because that's a huge component to it. That's a huge part of the accessibility that I want people to be able to afford these things without having to necessarily save up, for weeks, or I don't want people to feel like they're really stretching their budget for the week, because I want this to be something that is, just, it's always a funny conversation when it comes to charging for services, right? And the money and the investment and the self-investment, right? The manifestation of abundance and self-investment, and getting our money mindset right, like all of these things interweave. And I feel like there's always this junction and this sort of meeting point of all these different things that are also intertwined. And I know in my own journey, right, that when I first started doing self-development work, I didn't have any money to spend on self-development work. And I think that's such a situation that resonates across the board for numerous people, that when we first come to a lot of these things, we don't necessarily have the money sitting there to spend on it. And it's almost like that's the challenge that the universe slaps in our face first, right? Says, you want to self-develop, you want to expand, you want to grow, you want to, shift energetically your vibration, and you want to call in these things, you want to step into being your highest self. Here's your first fucking challenge, right? Is how do I get an abundant money mindset when I haven't got any money to spend on the thing that is going to empower me, right? Like, it's this big fucking conundrum. And so that's partly why I am so aware that, there is the ability for us to have infinite abundance at any point in time, for us to change our money mindset, for us to grow, and for us to call in, like to manifest, right? Like anything overnight potentially, right? But I also want to help facilitate making it easier, because I know that for myself, the moment I had some cash flow to be able to start investing in myself, that was just such a weight lifted off my chest, and such a moment of expansion. And there are so many people who are in situations where they, for whatever reason, are where they are right now, and it is not necessarily anything that they've done. And if anything, the past year has shown us so fucking clearly that there are so many systemic issues that are holding people under, basically. And why not be part of the solution to that? I think is what I'm trying to say here, that, why not be part of the solution to going, actually, you know what? I have no idea of what you have come from, the family environment you may or may not have been brought into this world in, the society you may or may not have come into this world having to be amongst by default, right? But why not make it easier for people to access something that can potentially fucking change their life, right? Like, why not make it easier? Who am I to sit here going, no, the only way you can find out about your human design is if you can afford to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a full chart reading. Like, this is my gate 45, right? This is my gate 45 sitting there going, no, the health and well-being and joy and happiness and the way I am supporting others to raise their vibration is if I'm sitting, I've got up off my throne and I'm down on the floor with people mingling, and I'm going, hey, here is the thing that is going to empower you, is going to support you, is going to allow you to be at your best and brightest, because I need you to be at your best and brightest, right? Like, I don't thrive if you're not thriving. So that's why it's been such a, big thing for me to get this going. And it's also been why it's taken me a long time to get them together. And it's actually really interesting going through this process of talking about it, because it's actually reassured me that I'm doing the right thing by taking my time putting them together, the self-study resources and guides and things, because I want them to be, it's not coming from a perfectionist standpoint, or that could be, because, hey, mental projector, one of our things can tend to be perfectionism. But, it's coming from a place of, I want to know that they are truly serving people, and I'm not just whacking together some download, like you guys will have all been there. Like, if you're listening to this, like, you will have been there when you've come across maybe something and there's been this, pop-up that's gone, hey, click here and download my freebie that is whatever, right? I think like one of the most recent ones I got kind of like suckered in by was like a guide, an astrology guide, right? And so I did the email thing, downloaded it, got it to my email inbox, and to be honest, it was so crap what came through. And yes, it was free. Yes, it didn't necessarily make any tangible promises, but it was totally one of those situations where it was a very glossy exterior that made it look something far more than it actually was when it arrived. And energetically, it felt like such a fucking letdown for me. And that's why, when it comes to things like this, this is my 6-2 profile, also kind of like rearing up and, kind of like doing its thing and shaking its stuff, because it's going, hey, you know what? If I am going to enter into an energetic exchange with you, whether you come to my world through my website or through my podcast or through my social media, and we exchange energies, whether that's, in terms of like freebies or, like podcast episodes, just like this one, whether it is through actual, sort of transaction of money, I want to ensure that whatever is coming through for you is absolutely a representation of my heart and my soul and what I'm here to empower you with. I'm not wanting to just slapdash something together quickly because it's, strategically you'll hear a lot of, let's say, business gurus on the internet will talk about having, a funnel in your business for leading people to your high ticket offer. And they'll talk about having a freebie and then a low investment offer and then a mid investment offer and blah, 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 blah. And while, yes, there is benefits to having a strategy, which we're going to talk about on another episode. But, I am not someone who is comfortable putting together something that's just like a cheap resource, because I want to make sure that whatever's going out is is a true representation of my heart, my soul, and most particularly my soul purpose coming through to support you in the way that is all of those things that I talked about earlier, is creating a way for you to have greater and deeper and more thorough access to your human design in the way that is, aligned and appropriate for you, and is, coming through in the modality and the way that I'm sharing it that is truly mine. It's not just a replica of another resource that I purchased off someone and went, oh, I like the way they've put that together, right? That it's truly coming through in a way that is totally new paradigm, is the way that I feel really called to put it together. So, and of course, as I always do, when these things come out, which I'm hoping isn't too much further away, but to be honest, it's, as I've just mentioned, I had kind of initially set myself this ridiculous deadline, or not deadline, like goal, let's say goal, of having these out by the time it was my birthday back in March. And that was right at the start of March. And I had set myself this very ambitious goal of having them finished by then. And I talked about it in Cosmic Imprint, my Facebook group, and talked about how, we were going to be celebrating with having a special offer for all the members of my Facebook group. And of course, these things are still not available on my website yet because I am still busy refining and, putting them together. So I've had to do a lot of, kind of giving myself permission, because it's basically almost the start of May and they're still not there, right? And this again comes back to all sorts of wisdom around timing and divine timing, and understanding that actually, we don't need to force and push and hustle and get caught up in that rat race of, sort of out of alignment ambition or strategy. But when we can trust that there is a reason why something like this is taking me longer to put together, then what ultimately is created is going to be such a true representation of me, and energetically is going to feel so good for me, right? That, there's the progress over let's start that again. Progress over perfection is absolutely the motto when it comes to being a soulpreneur. Like that is something that I really want to kind of reinforce here, that this is, if you've got things that you're sitting on in your business that are kind of like nearly ready to launch, or that you haven't quite launched, have this real honest conversation with yourself, right? Go, am I holding this back because I'm being a perfectionist? Am I holding this back because there's like a couple of simple steps that I need to do, but I've kind of built them up in my head so that they're too big and too hard and too difficult and going to take too much time? Are you holding them back because you need somebody else's skill set to be able to actually get it online? Are you holding it back because of fear of what will happen if you do launch it, either fear of success or fear of failure, right? Like, have those honest conversations with yourself as a soulpreneur and go, what's the reason? And if it's like sabotaging your business, like the fact that you've got this thing that you need to get online so that people can actually pay you for your beautiful gifts and your soul work and the thing that you're here to do, then get a bit of paper and like write out all the things that need to be done in order to get it online or out in the world, right? And start moving through that list just one step at a time. Focus on 2 to 3 things that you can do today or tomorrow even, and start there, right? Like, it can be really overwhelming to look at the whole thing and just kind of see the whole project. But if you can take small steps to actually take action, that's the best place to start. And so, like I say, with this, it's not me being a perfectionist. It's me going, you know what, I still need to infuse a whole lot more of me in what this offer is. But I know that once it's out there energetically, it is going to feel so fucking good. And in the meantime, of course, I have other avenues and other ways and other income streams that my business is being prosperous, right? So it's not that this is the one and only thing in my business. And I want to be clear about that too, because I think sometimes especially when we're starting out in the early days and we maybe don't have any other offers or we don't have any other ways that people can work with us because we're growing and we're just getting started and we maybe only have one or two things, that's where, again, it's coming back to that conversation, like I was just saying, that, to really get to the core of why you maybe haven't launched the thing, or maybe why you haven't actually got something out and in the world. Because I think that's important to recognize that, we can end up self-sabotaging ourselves, right? If we hold on to these things and go, no, it's not ready yet, or I'm fearful of actually putting it out there, or I don't know how to actually do it, so I'm just procrastinating it, right? So it's getting clear on all that and giving yourself permission to experience all of that and yet still be a fucking huge success. So how was that for a whole lot of real talk when it comes to being a soulpreneur? I hope you found something of value in that episode. I hope you've been inspired perhaps to take action, or have received some permission slips for, your magic, your gifts, your truth, your true alignment. Because I think, again, it's all about sharing these parts to us. That is really, really important. It's all about sharing the truth behind, what it takes to be a soulpreneur, what it takes to follow your soul calling, to actually bring it to life, what it takes to do the inner work to get to the point where you can have that true, sort of just trust and faith in who you're here to be. I just lastly want to touch on a really interesting point that I came across in a local Facebook group that I'm part of here for local businesses, and a bit like a sort of, I guess, a business business community, business membership. I'm not really sure what to call it. It's called a business collective anyway. And one of the questions that someone posted the other day was for women, who are in business. And it was asking whether, on a scale of 1 to 10, how we all thought that, what did we think on a scale of 1 to 10 was the value of having self-belief and confidence in yourself as a woman in business. And the answers were really interesting because some ranged from sort of like an 8, sort of like going, probably like an 8 to 9. And then for some people, it was the solid 10 of course, you've got to have your own, self-belief and self-confidence and have your own back. And I actually replied and said, well, yeah, my answer's a 10, but I think it's really important to distinguish between being a woman in business, as in, a female person who works, whether that's part-time, whether that's full-time, or are you a female entrepreneur, a woman who is an entrepreneur, right? Because if you are an entrepreneur of any kind, it's like, it's not even a 10, it's like 100, it's 1,000 on the scale, because you have to have the absolute unshakable belief in what it is that you want to bring to reality, to create your dreams, to have the confidence in your magic and your skills. And, hey, human design is a fucking hugely big gift as part of that, because you can have that rock solid belief in why you are the way you are, how you are the way you are, what your true soul gifts are, what your, magic is, your unique magic that you've come here to embody. And I think when you are in the workplace, particularly if you're working for someone else, or you're working as part of a, say a group of people, you can have days that are a bit shaky, and other people will kind of either prop you up or have your back or take over some of your workload. But for those of you who are, self-employed or creatives or solopreneurs, you will know that ultimately your self-investment in, your confidence in yourself, your belief in yourself, your magic and your gifts and all the incredible things that you're manifesting, that has to come from within, because that is the direct correlation to the abundance and the prosperity and the richness of your life that you are co-creating with the universe. And yeah, it takes, in my opinion, more than a 10 on the scale. So if you needed a little bit of reassurance that it's okay to have days where it feels like it's a bit tough going, please know that there are so many other epic beings out there just like yourself that are going through the same thing. Please don't feel alone. And also, please just know that you're incredible. You're amazing. The fact that you're here listening to this podcast alone is so fucking cool, and such a big gift to yourself, and such a big permission slip for yourself, that you can really just celebrate the fuck out of yourself for being here and doing the thing. And remember, your mess is your message. At the end of the day, if you are sitting there going, hey, I feel like I'm in the weeds right now, and it feels like it's a bit hard to know which way's up, which way's forward, and you've been struggling to sort of, maybe post on social media because you kind of feel like you haven't really got anything to say and all of that sort of stuff, your mess is your message. And so if the only thing you get on your social media and talk about today is that what you're going through right now, right? Share your story, share the behind the scenes, share what it takes, share what you've done to develop your mindset, to change your mindset, even to work on your self-development and your soul growth and your soul expansion. Talk about your own human design, right? Like, I think these are all things that we sometimes see the very glossy side of social media and the online world, and we forget that it's actually okay to share the real. And that's what I want for you to go away from this episode feeling confident to today, because hey, that's what I'm here talking about, right? Like, that's this whole concept of this podcast episode, is to share the real, to share the way I see things, to share the way I've come to decisions in my business, and to empower you to do the same. So I send you so much love. I'm really excited to share with you part 2, which is going to be talking about the other way that major thing in my business that I'm setting up, or have set up, to make human design more accessible, where we're going to get into talking about Ascend, which is my human design reader training that I've created. And I'm going to be sharing with you all about sort of the same, essence of how I came about knowing that this was the thing that I was going to be creating and offering and serving others with, and why I've created it in the way I've created it, how I am sharing it with the world as a mental projector with a 6-2 profile, and a whole lot of good stuff on that front. So I'm going to be talking about breaking it down as well as to what it takes to build an online course, how to record content for your online course, how I've marketed that online course, all of that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a real fun episode coming up after this one. I won't say next week, because the reality is that people, don't necessarily always listen to podcasts week on week when they come out. They tend to, if you're anything like me, you tend to binge them all in one hit when you've got the time. So I will just say on the following episode is going to be part 2 of how I am creating ways to make human design more accessible. So for now, I send you so much love. I send you huge virtual hugs. If you aren't already in Cosmic Imprint, my Facebook group, come on over and join the party. The link to join is in with the show notes for this episode. When you join, there's a couple of questions to answer, because we just want to make sure that everyone who's coming and hanging out there knows exactly what the group's about and is on the same vibration. And of course, if you do come over and hang out, there are always exclusives in that group for when these self-study resources, for example, are going to be coming out and are going to be available. Guess what? Everyone in my Facebook group is getting a super special discount code to go with the celebration of those coming out into the world. So if you're not already in the Facebook group, come over and join. I would love to see you there. It's very chill. We're not about being all super hyped and having to spend time in there every day. And it's not a massive conversation that you feel like you're constantly missing what everyone's talking about. It's very chill. It's very much mental projector pace. And it's very much, you can just dive in to the goodness in there as and when suits you. As always, big virtual hugs. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.